Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Crowded Booth. We're here live at Cook's Place in Columbus, Georgia. And Matthew, what a day it has been. July 31st, it's a national holiday for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And, man, we were sitting there. It's trade deadline day. And at 4 p.m., everyone had to stop training. It seemed that it was kind of quiet on all fronts from around 2 to 3:15.
Yeah.
And then 45 minutes, you saw about 6 or 7 big trades go down. Before we get started, make sure to, if you're watching, follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And make sure if you want to just listen to audio, subscribe to us on iTunes as well. Once again, we're here at Cook's Place in Columbus, Georgia. He was kind enough, Mr. Roy Cook. They have hot dogs, anything you want, old style diner. Come and check it out. So first off, Matthew, we'll start here with, you look at the trade deadline. It's an opportunity. It's a really big day of opportunity. A lot of teams wait till this day, the 30th, the 29th to the 31st, wait to make a deal just to see how the market is, and then it's like a free agent frenzy. Matthew was watching, had the TV on and on Twitter at the same time, and it was just update after update coming in. We'll just go ahead and start getting into some of the trades. In your mind, it kind of started with Manny Machado about a week ago.
Yeah.
That was kind of the first domino fell. Obviously, I would say the biggest trade was probably him. I mean, everyone knew that Machado was going to be on the move, but to see him go to a team like the Dodgers,
right,
which is a team with a big payroll, you told us a big payroll.
Biggest in baseball.
You got the biggest payroll in baseball, a big market over there in LA. And then you combine that with the fact that they already, it's not like they had necessarily a need for him. I mean, They're adding one of the best bats in the game to already a very potent lineup.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and I think that was, I know that was a week ago, but I would still say it's the biggest trade for the trade deadline because, one of the best two-way players in the league with his defense and his bat. I think that makes him one of the top players in the league. I think that's why that was such a big trade for them. And, obviously, they signed him in as a rental, and they still get, 4 prospects, and one of them being their number 4 prospect overall. So, them still giving up a good bit of prospects for him, even for a rental, that just shows how high his value is and how, the Dodgers are in the win-now mode and playing for this year, especially with signing with Brian Dozier and getting John Axford from the Blue Jays at the very end of the trade deadline. So that was a big pickup as well. And obviously, like you said, from 3:15 to about 4 o'clock, that's when all the big trades happen. And like with Jonathan Shoup, that happened literally, I think, at like 3:59, 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And so that was like the last trade of him going to the Brewers and Jonathan Villar going back to the Orioles. And I read where Ken Rosenthal said that the Orioles saved about $30 to $35 million in guaranteed money. So Orioles gave a lot, but I think in return they got a good bit of prospects. They can kind of start the rebuild, giving up Machado and Shoup and kind of starting from the ground up, giving away Gosman and kind of starting from scratch, So.
Yeah, you talked about the salary relief for them was big. And if you look at the Dodgers lineup now, you got a bunch of guys. Where do you even put them? You got a guy like Manny Machado can come in and play shortstop or third. Mm-hmm. Corey Seager's obviously done for the year.
Right.
And like you said, Machado's a rental. And that's another topic if he's going to come back or not. But you have him. You have a guy like Max Muncy in that lineup who has just emerged. As a guy we didn't even hear of in spring training, and then he burst on the scene, kind of unseats Cody Bellinger. Right. Cody Bellinger not having the same year he did last year. That's because his year last year was that amazing. It was an unbelievable year for a rookie first baseman.
39 home runs.
So you look at that lineup. It's hard not to say that they're the winner of a deadline deal. But you look at some other deals around the league. You talked about the Orioles. Okay, they traded Zach Britton. Zach Britton goes to the Yankees, who already had arguably the best bullpen in the league. They add Zach Britton, so your 7, 8, 9 is going to be, in no particular order, whichever one you want that night is Britton, Betances, and Chapman. And that's in the playoffs. In the playoffs, the bullpen is really big to win the series.
Mm-hmm. And especially for like a team like the Dodgers, where they're using Kershaw. How many times do you think they used him last year in that National Series? They brought him in, I feel like, every other game, and I feel like the Yankees may have saw that and learned from that last postseason, and now with all this bullpen help, their starting rotation is already good with Severino, Tanaka, and Sonny Gray, and so forth. But having that bullpen help saves that starting pitcher rotation even come playoffs. So I think that's what they wanted to load up on, and obviously with the payroll they have, they don't have a problem paying players to come play for them with the amount of money they have.
Yeah, that offense is dynamic. They have some guys that are banged up. Judge just going on the DL. But you stay within the AL East, the biggest storyline there is Yankees-Red Sox. I mean, they're facing off in a big series this weekend. You saw them kind of match each other for trades, honestly, throughout the day, throughout the weekend. Nathan Eovaldi coming to Boston from Tampa. I mean, teams were just trying to make a deal just to counter or even block another player from getting there. Boston gets Ian Kinsler yesterday to kind of give a veteran presence within. It's fairly a young team in Boston. It's not the same Boston team that we're used to seeing with, you think of the guys like it was like when it was Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz. This is a young Boston team led by Mookie Betts, Benintendi, Devers, Bogarts, Chris on the bump. I mean, then you bring in Ian Kinsler with Pedroia down. I think he can step in and be your everyday second baseman for as long as Pedroia is out and provide some veteran leadership.
Yeah, and like I was just about to say, that veteran leadership and his defense is still pretty solid even at the age of 35. So I think they brought him in exactly for that leadership role, but also just another bat in the lineup. I mean, I think they're 73 and 33. I mean, they're having a crazy run right now, but just adding that extra bat in the lineup while Pedroia is kind of banged up. And providing that veteran leadership role, I think that was huge for them. I think they had a great trade deadline. I think the Brewers, I mean, they probably have one of the best, in my opinion, along with the Pirates. But adding, Moustakas and adding Shoop, I think that was huge for them. The weak point for them will probably be their pitching. I mean, they have good pitching, but their lineup is going to be lethal for whoever they play during the regular season and then come playoff time.
One interesting thing that was going around, you look at the Brewers last year, they were kind of in contention, stayed pat at the deadline, didn't make any deals. Well, in the offseason they add Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain, and now they're have been one of the either in first place or in second place or leading the wild card in the National League, and now I think they're more apt to make moves like that. Now you said like the starting pitching staff, I think is going to be the only question mark heading into postseason for them, but that lineup, when you bring in a guy like Moustakas who, he's not lighting the world on fire, had a strong first couple months, but he has playoff experience, he has World Series experience. You bring in a guy like Shoop, a young second baseman that can kind of fill the void that was there for them, and they really don't have a lot of holes in that lineup. A good hitting team, a smart hitting team. Then you continue within the if you in the NL. I mean, the Cubs, they picked up Cole Hamels, a veteran guy. Huge. So you're going to have two guys with tons of playoff experience, and John Lester
former
and Cole
All-Star.
Hamels. Yeah, former All-Star. Now he's in his mid-30s. This is not the same Cole Hamels that was up in Philadelphia with their run back in 2009. So it'd be interesting to see how he fits in. I think he's starting tonight, actually against the Red Sox, which will be interesting to see how he does. But you look at the Cubs; they made some moves.
Well, the Phillies playing the Red Sox tonight.
Phillies play the Red Sox, yes. So, but yeah, Cole Hamels, he's going to get ample opportunity to prove himself. I think he's mid-30s. We'll see what happens there. But you look at the NL Central as well. As we saw the Cardinals kind of not really make big moves, kind of sell off some pieces.
Right.
You saw a team that's been on fire lately in the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, we heard today 7 games out of the Central, 3.5 out of the wild card. We know the wild card's wide open. It's wide open. It's wide.
I know.
And I think that when you look at that and you say, okay, do we have, as a front office, do we have a legitimate shot? They're able to go out and get Chris Archer. One thing that, from Tampa Bay, and one thing that I liked about it is that they're trading former top prospects for a former top ace. So honestly, it was an evenly balanced trade. The Rays are able to offload Chris Archer and get some kind of buy low kind of guys in Austin Meadows and Tyler Glasnow, and you never know what can happen there. But the Pirates get their number one guy, but it's interesting to me because if you think about it, okay, the Pirates are 7 games out of the Central. I don't think they expected to be playing like this because they traded Garrett Cole in the offseason and Andrew McCutchen, two guys that probably at this point they're thinking, they're thinking we wish we really had those guys back. So that's interesting. But they made a move to get another number one. Kind of gave them some pieces, but they felt that that's what they needed to get, and I think Archer will benefit from not being in the AL East, not having to go up against the Red Sox and Yankees.
And Glasnow was probably one of the Pirates' top regarded prospects as far as pitching goes, along with Meadows, who had a good bat in that lineup. So I think it was kind of a high risk, high reward for them, but I think it was what they needed as far as their rotation goes because, I mean, they're going like an 11 or 12 game win streak and kind of brought themselves back in a wild card contention. I think they're only 5-6 games back, so it's not completely out for them. So I think they're still trying to win now and kind of get in that wild card spot. But I think it was a really good move for them to go after Archer, getting that top of the rotation type guy, especially after giving away Cole in the offseason. So I think that was a good trade for them. But a lot of stuff going around the league. Braves.
Yeah, you look at stay in the NL. You look at the NL East, and it's kind of a dogfight. And I think after the deadline, it's kind of understood the Nationals are going to roll with what they have. I mean, they feel like on paper they have a great team. They can get everyone healthy. We'll see if they can make a run. They're currently, I think, 5.5 out of first place, so they're not out of it yet, not even close. You look at that, so they're going to try to make a run. But the Braves and Phillies made moves, and it's been an interesting situation all June and July. These are young teams that don't really want to sell the farm for anyone, but definitely understand they need to make moves to have an impact in the postseason. And I think both teams are definitely exceeding expectations. That's one thing we talked about in our previous episode with Braves radio reporter Kevin McAlpin. He's like, the Braves did not necessarily thought they were going to be here. They hoped to be in this position. And so having to kind of, on a whim, kind of say, okay, now we're buyers here at the deadline, which cannot be said for Braves fans. They have not been able to see a deadline where they've actively. But the Braves got active late. And it's one of the things you see on social media was that they seem to have this thing where no rumors really leaked. I mean, you look at the first trade was Johnny Venters, bringing him back in. Feel good story, but still effective. I mean, he's dominant against lefties. He's a guy that can kind of take the pressure off a guy like Sam Freeman, who is we've talked about it. Sam Freeman's been worked for Braves fans. I mean, he has been a guy that is.
Which is crazy because he was good last year, but then all of a sudden this year he's just fallen off the map, which has been kind of sad to see. But I mean, and I think picking up Venters is good. Brad Bach, we saw him pitch last night. He
throws hard.
Threw hard, made Prado look silly on a slider. So, I mean, he's got good stuff. I think there's a lot of promise there. But I think Gausman, a change of scenery, getting out of the AL East where you're facing nothing but power hitters and guys like Judge, Mookie Betts. And
in a hitter-friendly park in Camden Yards in Baltimore, to be able to get out of that, like you said, I mean, sometimes it's a change of scenery guy. And this is not to throw anything out there that you think is like, oh, this is prediction. But I told you this, the last 27-year-old pitcher who wasn't pitching well in Baltimore they got traded was Jake Arrieta. And he benefited from a change of scenery. And sometimes that's all it takes for guys is kind of a fresh start where they don't feel the pressure. I mean, you're looking at Gausman, he was a first-round pick, a number 4 overall pick out of LSU. I mean, he was supposed to be the savior for that franchise. Didn't pan out. So now he moves into another situation where he doesn't have as much pressure. So I think also with the pitching staff, you've seen guys like Folty develop. You've seen guys like Newcomb develop. That pitching staff and the pitching, just the whole pitching staff can garner around them. The coaching staff maybe developing into something that wasn't there in Baltimore. But I think they made that big move that kind of gives them a controllable starter, which they really sought after. Then you have Adam Duvall. I mean, Adam Duvall is a guy who has hit 30 home runs for the past 2 seasons. He's not a guy that necessarily hits for average, but when you look at him, he'll hit for power, and he's a plus defender. With all across the board, and I think it's a good pickup. You look at what they gave up. They gave up Matt Wisler, Lucas Sims, and Preston Tucker. So you look at that. Okay, in Braves front office opinion, you had Matt Wisler, kind of a guy never really lived up to the hype that he was coming over in that Kimbrel trade. And then you have a guy like Lucas Sims, who is a local product, but just never really materialized. And that's for the Reds. I mean, that's something they can buy low on. They're rebuilding. Something they buy low on. If it works out, it doesn't. If not, then they got something back. I think that when you have also Preston Tucker, kind of a lefty, and I think that's one of the odd things about him is that he was a left-handed bat. They necessarily don't need any more left-handed bats, so I think he was just an odd-man-out good player. Maybe can develop into an everyday player.
Won us a couple of games at the beginning of the season.
Clutch, has some power, but I think Adam Duvall is going to step in. And you were talking earlier, and you can talk more about it. What do you think his role with Atlanta will be?
Well, I think, like Alex Anthopoulos already talked about, that when left-handed pitchers, when we're facing left-handed pitchers, you'll see Koon move over to center and Duvall playing left. Also, they said, in Cincinnati, and as we saw him play, he was in left, he was in right, he played first, he played third. So kind of a super utility guy that has a lot of power, which is you don't see a lot. But I think if he can just hit for about 250, 260 and hit, I mean.
He's already got 15 home runs.
He's already got 15 home runs. So as long as he can, hit more homers, obviously, and just provide that power that we need in the middle of the lineup, which we have really struggled to see. I mean, we have two guys above 15 home runs on the club, Ozzie and Freddie. Other than that, there's not another guy who has above 15 homers. I mean, you have Markakis in the cleanup spot, and he has like 10 or 11 home runs. So that's not your typical cleanup guy.
Not a typical power lineup. And
Exactly.
then if you flip over to the Phillies, I mean, they had their offseason acquisition. Their two big guys were Carlos Santana, a power bat, and Jake Arrieta. They make some moves. They get Asdrubal Cabrera from the Mets to kind of fortify that shortstop position that's been kind of off and on. But I think it's interesting to see both teams, the Braves making some deals to get some people, and the Phillies as well, to try to strengthen their chances as we enter the dog days of August, the stretch run here for the playoffs, to see who's going to battle out. Because if you're the NL East, if you look at the standings, the records and the NL East are close, but compared to the Central, they'd be trailing in the wild card.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think it's going to depend on these two teams realize, hey, we're going to have to win this division to be able to make the playoffs.
And just to circle back to the Gausman trade, you know, with Fulte and Newcomb, I think the two, and Toronto as well, the problems that you see with them is their control sometimes. Like, they strike out a lot of guys, they don't give them a lot of runs, but the thing you see, they walk a lot of people. Yeah. And Gausman's strikeout to walk ratio is pretty incredible. I think it was like 104 to 32 or something like that. So to bring in a guy that has a lot of control and has a lot of upside, as he was drafted number 4 by,
and still in 27,
and still in 27, and they have 2 years of contractual control, I believe, on him. So I think getting those extra 2 years on him and bringing in a guy that doesn't walk a lot of guys, I think that was huge for us. And so we didn't really give up a whole lot. Obviously, Encarnacion was a highly touted prospect, and I know you saw him when he was in Rome. But with Lucas Sims and Tucker, or not Tucker, but with Lucas Sims and Whistler, I think we were able to see like what they were able to bring to the table. And they're good in AA, AAA, but never really panned out in the majors. But to see that, I think that he can really provide a spark with us. And I think, like I said, a change of scenery. I know sometimes that doesn't really happen in a positive way for some pitchers, but I think for him it could pan out. Just coming to a new club that's winning, that's only a half game back in the division, I think that could be good for him.
Yeah, these guys are going to come into their new teams and see what happens. We flip back over to the American League. Really the only team, we'll talk about this really quick, only team in the AL Central is the Indians. I mean, and they made a big trade getting Brad Hand from San Diego. And really, he was the top reliever on the market. Lefty, he's a guy that can get both sides out, though, righties and lefties. So he's a guy that you can leave in there when they bring up a pinch hitter. And so I think that was big for them to be able to say, okay, we can hand a guy the ball in the end of the game and know it's in good hands. Andrew Miller coming back from injury.
Leonis Martin.
Yeah, they get Leonis Martin as well, play center field, kind of a black hole for them. They kind of all have that division kind of wrapped up.
The pitching's there, the line's top to bottom.
Corey Kluber anchoring the staff, Carlos Carrasco. So that team, I think, they made some small moves to fill holes.
Exactly.
You go to the AL West, and recently we were hearing today, the Houston Astros. I think it's just been this foregone conclusion. They're going to win the West. We'll see them at least in the ALCS. We'll see them there against the Yankees or Red Sox. They've lost their last 5 games.
They brought some Mariners back
been struggling. Brought the Mariners back into it, and Mariners GM has not been afraid to make trades. It's Jerry DiPoto over there, bringing in Zach Duke and then another reliever as well, 2 relievers, and fortifying their starting pitching with the last-minute trade for Mike Fears from Detroit. He comes over to Seattle. And so, you look at the Mariners trying to make some trades. They get Cameron Maben to come play center field, who from Miami. That moves Dee Gordon back down to second base. They're trying to make a push there. The Angels traded Kinsler away. They got the best player in baseball. We'll see what they can do the rest of the way. But I think the Astros made some moves as well, and probably the most controversial move of the whole deadline, getting Roberto Osuna from Toronto, which is an interesting topic that we'll leave the topic along with how their team works and the front office works. But they kind of get a back-end guy, sent out Ken Giles, wasn't really working for him.
Right.
So as we've looked at a lot of the trades, what would you say your biggest winner from these deals would be?
I got to go with the Machado trade to the Dodgers. I know they're already stacked and before they got him, but bringing in the best 2-way player in the league, you can say Arenado, Machado, one of those guys, but I mean, that's a huge bat in their lineup, especially replacing Seager, who had that freak, arm injury, had to have Tommy John surgery. So I think bringing him in, bringing Dozier in at the corner slot, I mean, and then bringing when Justin Turner comes back off the DL, that's going to be a lethal lineup. And so we'll see what happens, but I mean, I think they're easily going to have one of the best lineups in the league.
Yeah, we had a question on Twitter asking, is that going to be the best infield ever? I mean, Max Muncy over there at first. Then, like you said, when Turner comes back, Bellinger can fill in at first as well. Then you would Dozier at second, when Turner at third, and Machado at short. And don't even forget, you have a Gold Glove. Some would say maybe an MVP candidate in Corey Seager, who's on the disabled list. I mean, that team is absolutely loaded with talent. And I agree. I mean, they're most likely a winner. My winner is probably going to – I'm going to look at I like the Yankees. I think they made some good additions. They got Jay Happ, a starter who is going to fill in and just kind of goes out there and does his job. I mean, people forget he was an all-star.
Yeah.
He was an all-star with
Toronto.
Last year.
I think it was last year.
Yeah, he was an all-star with Toronto. And so – he goes out there and is consistent. I think it's what that pitching rotation needs. They have Severino at the top, but Tanaka, Sabathia have kind of been a little bit inconsistent. So having a guy that you can hand the ball to, in like a game 2 or game 3 that can get the job done, he's going to give you 6 or 7 innings is big. I think you look as well with the addition of the bullpen. I mean, that bullpen is it's unreal. I mean, getting Zach Britton. And Zach Britton necessarily is not the Zach Britton of old, but he's getting there. That's one of the reports that have been saying that Zach Britton is getting there. And so
surrounding yourself with that talent.
I mean, if you're down in the 6th inning, you might as well pack your bags and head back to the hotel because you're not going to get a chance with Britton, Betances, and Aroldis Chapman. So I think that when you have just a bullpen like that you can hand the ball to, Aaron Boone's going to have the luxury of picking a guy. Throw a dart on the wall and pick a guy for Game 6 of the World Series, and you got to feel like you're in pretty good hands.
Right.
When you have as well the Brewers. Brewers also a winner to me because
I agree
because that offense is lethal. I mean, they had Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain, Jesus
Aguilar. They're both with Hatter and Knievel, or however you say it. Yeah. I mean, that's a great bullpen. I think literally the only missing piece they have on that team is the starting pitching. So
wouldn't say they have necessarily like a guy, and we talked a lot about this before the show, a guy that you can put in game 1 and say, okay. But the thing is, those people, some fans believe those guys grow on trees, and they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to me, there's a few guys that you can throw in a Game 7 World Series and say, I know he's going to give me. He could possibly give me 8 or 9 innings. And that's a guy like Kershaw, a guy like a healthy Bumgarner, Scherzer, Verlander. I mean, there's a lot. Chris Sale. There's a lot of guys that you're like, maybe. And I don't think the Brewers have anybody honestly close to that. I mean, they have a guy like Chase Anderson, Jimmy Nelson. They have guys that could possibly do it.
Young and inexperienced. Huh?
Young and inexperienced. And I think that's going to be one of the things that the Cubs made the deal for Cole Hamels because they have a ton of experience in that rotation.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting to see that NL Central battle come down. And you talked about the NL West. I mean, the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks are obviously there.
Yeah.
The Padres making some interesting moves as well. We're not really sure what they're doing.
Diekman going to the Diamondbacks, that was huge for them.
Yeah, a lefty reliever from Texas who definitely make his presence felt over there in the West. But I think when you look at those teams, you have to say, okay, these teams separate themselves. Now for losers, who do you feel like maybe swung and missed on a deadline, or maybe didn't do something they should have, or didn't do anything at all and it was a mistake?
If the Braves wouldn't, I wouldn't say the Braves would have been losers necessarily without that Gosman trade, just because they didn't give up anything for Duvall, and obviously then getting Darren O'Day and Gosman, I think that was icing on the cake for the Braves to kind of put them over the threshold, because last week compared to now, the team that we have now, I think it's way better in my opinion, and we didn't give up any of our top 10 prospects, which is what we're most scared of.
The fact that the Braves were unable, or the Packs were able to give up not really any of those top pitching prospects that everyone's probably tired of hearing about is really a big move, and patched up some holes and said, pretty much the front office said, we believe this team is good, and I believe so too. I mean, this team is good enough to really make a run, and they got a controllable starting pitcher. But I'm sure in the offseason they'll try to make some bigger moves. I think.
And the Nats not doing anything.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. A loser for me is the Nationals, because you're taking a big risk. You're 5.5 out. I mean, trading Bryce Harper is hard. I understand that. But it's not trying to sell off guys like a Gio Gonzalez, maybe some pieces here and there, like maybe a Daniel Murphy to a team. I mean, I just think that
Who hasn't been the Daniel Murphy that they signed him for?
Yes, and so I think that can come back to haunt them. And like we talked about, they could lose Harper for nothing. I mean, he could walk away with nothing but a pick, you know, that they could get if they offer him that qualifying offer.
And you saw what the Orioles did. I mean, they knew Machado wasn't going to be back next year, so they got the Dodgers' number 4 prospect and 3 other prospects. So I think it's just kind of like putting that wall down. Okay, we're going to have to give this guy up, Royce. We're going to just let him walk away for free because when we let him walk away, we're not going to get anything returned. So you're going to get a top 5 prospect from somebody's team from trading Bryce Harper because he's just that good. He's a
I don't even know what trade offer you would be selling the farm for him.
Oh, yeah,
completely.
absolutely.
You'd have to give up your entire
I know his
team.
average isn't there this year, but we know the talent is there. We've seen
and general managers know that. General managers know what they're getting in Bryce Harper. It's just an outlier year.
Exactly.
But yeah, so the trade deadline was a crazy one. It was a fun-filled one, and it's going to set up just a very interesting August and September.
Fun division matchups.
Fun division battles the rest of the way. I know the Braves haven't played the Phillies in like 3 months. They're going to sit there and play them about 4 times.
Who also picked up Wilson Ramos.
Yeah, Wilson Ramos as well. Kind of the best offensive catcher in the game this season. But it's an interesting deadline, and it'd be interesting to see how these teams fare out in the end and if these rentals were really worth it. But thanks for joining us once again. This is Cook's Hot Dogs here in Columbus, Georgia, alongside Matthew Lang. I'm Bryce Koon. Thank you for tuning in for our MLB trade deadline recap show. It's been a fun one. It was crazy. Matthew's phone was blowing up. But make sure to follow us on all social media for the latest episodes and all the news. It's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes as well to hear the audio. Thanks for joining.